my goodness. It's You Choose. It's a new season.
That's why we're here, huh? Okay.
Is that what's happening? You Choose. Observability. I'm so excited. Yeah. Give it to me, Victor. Come on. A little shimmy.
I thought you know me better than that.
I totally do know you better than that. That's why I'm not going to try very hard at all. Welcome to You Choose. It's a choose your own adventure style show through the CNCF landscape. This is chapter 4 or season 4, all about observability. Thank you for being here. Thank you all the friends who've already said hello in chats. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm so excited. So let's talk about, Victor, let's start by talking about the past chapters. Usually up top in the show, we go through whatever we talked about last show. But in this case, last show was many months ago. So what are we doing? What are the past chapters of You Choose? What was chapter 1?
Whitney, I'm over 50. I don't remember what I did last week. Why are you doing that to me?
Just for the record books, Victor and I are pretty close in age. I'm 5 years younger than Victor.
That's still below 50. 50 is the barrier. Kind of. And once you pass that, you have all the excuses in the world, kind of basically, and nobody can tell you otherwise.
And your 50th birthday was like what, 2 months ago? It wasn't that long ago.
Doesn't matter. Anything above 50. Respect.
I look forward to
people stand up in the bus to give you the seat. Yes. You're not waiting queues anymore. It's brilliant.
So chapter 1, we started at the very beginning. Chapter 1, I guess almost 2 years ago now, with the source code on a developer's laptop. We did all the system design choices we needed to do to get it to a development environment. And then chapter 2 was from that development to a baby production environment where we had GitOps, where we did Ingress, where I forget what else. I forget what else. Some stuff.
We did some stuff
that was chapter 2.
Production.
Yes. Bam, production. But production didn't have anything really that it needs to have to be
bare
production.
Bones, the minimum.
Bare bones. And so that's last season, chapter 3. We did security and went through, I think, 30 different tools for that. It was quite a journey. And here we are taking on observability. And I have so many questions. You
want to start with them now? While the guests are patiently waiting.
As it all unfolds, I'll be asking many questions.
So you people that cannot be seen on a screen, but you can hear us, you can go home.
I'm just going to spend the rest, just a couple hours.
Basically, every once in a while, Whitney sends me a calendar invite, and it says in the description something like, "I have a few questions," and I know, oh my god.
Yeah, it's when I'm like working. Anytime I have a question, I just put it on a list, like an instant little list, and when my list gets full, I put a calendar invite on Victor's calendar,
which is never more than twice a week. Never. That's the limit. That's a respect for elderly she has.
So during this chapter, we have our dashboards episode today, which we'll talk more about shortly. We're going to talk about standardization and observability and how that came about and what that is. We'll talk about our signals, logs, metrics, tracing. But no one just does logs anymore. So the logs episode will actually be a data pipeline episode. We're going to talk about progressive delivery. We're going to talk about observing for cost. We're going to talk about service mesh, because every time I talk to service mesh technologies and Cilium 2, they all said they do security, networking, and observability. And then as soon as I started learning about observability, nobody's talking about service mesh. So we're going to do an episode.
Service mesh is everything. That's the marketing pitch. We are everything.
You need nothing, literally nothing else. Just and then we have, as always, a bunch of miscellaneous tools, the lovable misfits, which are always fun. And then that'll wrap up our season in a couple months from now. So I look forward to seeing y'all every Tuesday for a while. So let's talk about dashboards. There's one thing I want to say up top about this dashboards episode. I know we've been saying it's an observability episode and we're going to talk dashboards. So the natural assumption is that we're going to talk about observability dashboards, but we're not doing that. What kind of dashboards are we talking about?
So observability in this context means really looking at stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that can be metrics, logs, traces, but it can be the state of your cluster, right? Which is what we're talking about today. Now, tools might extend beyond it, but basically the minimum requirement in my book is, if you're talking about Kubernetes, to be able to do everything kubectl does in a more graphical type of user interface, right?
Yeah.
And so then there is a bonus on top of it, which depends on a tool, right?
Yeah. So at the bare minimum, we'll visualize everything in Kubernetes and have some sort of UI to be able to manipulate some of the stuff. And then there may or may not be more bells and whistles on top of that, depending on the project.
Did we speak about GitOps or no? Do we have to repeat it?
Do you have an opinion about that, Victor? Is there an opinion you'd like to share right now? I'm going to screenshot you making that gesture back at me and frame it on the wall. Yeah, so don't manipulate stuff through a graphical UI. Says
no,
Victor.
I'm kidding. I mean, it depends. I mean, I'm exaggerating. GitOps is not everything. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. No judgment. I mean, a bit of judgment, but not a lot.
I want to answer a question quickly. I have a question. What do I mean by nobody does logging anymore? It's all about data pipelining. People still absolutely do logs, but the tools that once did logs now also do all three signals: logs, metrics, traces. So unless you go with Fluent D, which is a technology that's being maintained but not being updated, then we're going to talk about Fluent Bit, and we're going to talk about it in the context of data pipeline with OpenTelemetry and logging operator. That will be that episode coming up.
The important note here also is that we are really covering the areas of, in this case, observability or of anything else that are covered by CNCF projects, right?
That's very important.
There are always areas that we are not covering in this series, not because they're not important, but because there are no CNCF projects. Like, for example, there is no tool, a database, call it, for storing logs in CNCF, right? There isn't one.
Yeah.
So we're not covering that, right?
Even though storing data for all three signals is a very important part of observability, that's not something we're covering in this season.
For logs.
But isn't it for all of it? Like each one has their own.
Metrics has Prometheus is a database. Think of it that way, right? For metrics. Jaeger does not necessarily implement its own database, but comes with a database where it stores traces. But logs, none of the tools that we are aware of. We might be missing something.
I'm sure y'all will tell us if we are. Please do. Bring it on. So this is the guests backstage, hold your ears. Do we need a Kubernetes dashboard at all? What's a Kubernetes dashboard good for?
Let's come back to that question after we hear
Okay. It does help. I think
that does. So I think that we can argue both for pros and cons of performing actions through dashboards, but I have zero doubt that from the observability perspective, they're very useful, right? That's to me, in my head, that's certain, right? The rest is something we could discuss. But
awesome.
Observability, kind of take a look. Yes, of course.
Yeah, like in terms of like a picture's worth 1,000 words, like being able to get a high level view of how all the different components are related to one another and how they can interact with one another is pretty invaluable and something you can't do with kubectl. And I think it's a good help for people who are new to Kubernetes to be able to more easily navigate a cluster and get a good mental model in place before it's all kubectl all day. Kube control. Sorry, some of you. I'm going to hear about that later.
Kubectl, kubectl.
So what are some characteristics we're evaluating when we're looking at the 3 tools that we're going to see today, which I should have said before are Kubernetes Dashboard, Headlamp, and Meshery. What should we think about when we're evaluating these tools, when we're watching our guest presentations?
I mean, they're graphical representation of something, so prettiness, I guess.
Prettiness?
If you graphically represent something, how pretty it is. I'm joking. I mean, again, I think that all the tools more or less in that area are doing that baseline that I talked about, right? And the difference is really in the bonuses, in additional features, right? Which tools go beyond, equivalent of kubectl, and how much do we need it?
Yeah. And I think I could be mistaken, but I think they're all pretty differently scoped too, in terms of what exactly it's visualizing. We'll find out and what features are adding on top. Instead of us guessing, let's bring our guests on. Actually, there's one more thing I have on the note to say up top. This is horrible, but I got laid off a couple of weeks ago. So I don't usually try to plug my own YouTube channel, but if you feel like following me on YouTube, thank you. Okay, I'm done with that. That was embarrassing. Okay, I regret doing it. I'm turning red.
Don't worry, I ignore most of the things you do, so I do not even notice what's going on.
Perfect. All right, Mark, we're bringing you on. Put a smile on your face, friend. Here you come. Welcome, Mark, who's going to teach us about Kubernetes Dashboard. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, so my name is Mark Borching. I'm the CTO of Tremolo Security. Thanks, guys, for having me. I am going to do a shameless plug. I am the co-author of Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide, whose 3rd edition came out today.
Congratulations.
On Amazon. Thank you.
That's cool.
So,
all right.
Dozens of tools, but yeah, sorry.
We'll see you shortly. Next up, we have Renee. Renee, welcome.
Hey, I'm Renee. I work on Headlamp. And yeah, I'm a bit of a Linux nerd. And I like, used to be a sysadmin. And yeah, I like playing around with all the bits and bobs.
Excellent. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Renee. And last but not least, we have Lee. Lee, welcome.
Whitney, hey, wait, hold on. I was just subscribing to a YouTube channel here. Okay. All right, good. I mean,
you notice how he acknowledged your presence, but not mine.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that?
I did notice it, actually.
Does the other guy
I don't mind.
Does the other guy have a YouTube channel? Did I miss that? But he's got a heck of a YouTube channel. If we're
yeah.
No. Stop talking. There is nothing that can wash over that incident.
It's over.
That's it.
So my name's Lee Calcote. I'm a maintainer of Meshery, and it's where I spend most of my time staring at GitHub, I suppose, and just doing PR reviews.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, we can't wait to hear all about Meshery later. We'll see you on the flip side, friends. Goodbye. Okay. Do you have the timer ready, Victor?
I have it, and I'm going to put the guest. I'm going to press the button. It's going to be your fault. What do you mean?
All right, Mark. Take it away. 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Whitney and Victor. The thing about Kubernetes Dashboard that is really super powerful is one, it's centralized. So you get direct access to it. You don't have to install anything on your machine. So especially when you're talking about modern enterprises, where distributing software is really, really painful and difficult. Especially when you're talking about the trend to move off of allowing developers to directly access the API server and saying, okay, you got to go through jump boxes. So local dashboards are harder and harder to deploy. They're harder and harder to manage. So with the Kubernetes dashboard, it actually makes it really easy to access it, wherever you are. So I'm using a web browser here from my desktop. I'm signing in with Okta. And the really cool thing is that this is all secure. This is like banks will use this, right? I've got customers who are banks that use this software. I've got governments that use this, that use our software. It is secure, especially the V3 version that came out a couple of months ago, where they actually eliminated one of the biggest vulnerabilities that people were using. And the nice thing about the Kubernetes dashboard is it mimics kube control. So it doesn't give you a lot of the relationships that you're going to see with a lot of the fancier dashboards, but you're getting your feet wet. You want to be able to quickly dive in. You kind of know what you're looking for maybe. And this is going to give you a lot of that information at your fingertips. If you've got metrics deployed, it will integrate directly with the metrics server. So like come over to here to the Open Unison namespace. And this dashboard that you're looking at, this is running on Civo Cloud. So it doesn't matter if you're running on a cloud, on-prem, the Kubernetes dashboard will work securely. You can securely access it. I'm accessing it right now as me, as Mark, as my user. So the only things I can see are the things that my user with kube control. There's no difference there. That makes your security people happy. It makes your developers happy because it now gives them a quick dashboard. You can go ahead, you take a look at the logs, and you're not going to replace your logs dashboard. You're not going to this isn't an all-in-one tool. But again, you need quick access to something. It's there. You need quick access to a terminal and a really jittery memory graph. It's there, right? It's all there. So you have access to all these things. You can get a very quick glance at the health of your cluster, the health of your infrastructure. And the thing I really love the most about this is being able to centralize the deployment means that you're not bound to your desktop anymore. So as an example, here is my iPad, right? And this is just my straight up iPad. This is not like me connecting, via, I'm not terminaled in or anything. You can see that there. We go ahead, verify. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. So it's logging in. So now I have the Kubernetes dashboard on my iPad, right? I'm not going to show people the whole logging in process again, but you get one of these jobbies, you get a phone, it works. And I ain't gonna lie, I manage clusters for a living, in addition to writing software. And it's not, if I get an alert and I got to look at something quickly, I don't have to take open my laptop. I can just take a quick look at my phone and see what's going on. So that's a big plus to me of that centralization. I don't know where I am on time. I'm not paying attention. So it's all there. It's snapshot. It's simple to deploy. I think I got this up and running securely, right? Like a secure login, less than 5 minutes. It was up and running and accessible anywhere.
Excellent. Are you finished?
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a great overview.
No gong for you.
No gong for you. I'm only slightly disappointed. Here's something we forgot to say up top. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat now. And ask them as we go, because sometimes we run out of time for all the questions. And if you ask it sooner rather than later, we're more likely to get to yours. All right, Renee, you're coming up. Are you ready with the timer, Victor?
Always.
All right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, again, I'm Renee, a developer at Microsoft for Headlamp. And let's talk about tailoring your Kubernetes experience with Headlamp. So the Headlamp vision, a unified, accessible user experience for learning and operating the ecosystem of CNCF tools. Lots of CNCF projects, then 16, now hundreds. Each organization uses different ones. So much functionality is available. a separate UI choice for each tool is also sometimes good. Learning different UIs, though, can be a challenge, potentially hundreds of UIs. It feels like, as a community, we could be building something better upstream. Headlamp. So Headlamp is a rich modern user interface. Everything you expect in a Kubernetes UI. You can see workloads, pods, namespaces. You can link to them all. You can get graphs with a metric server, view it on a mobile and such. It's open source and a CNCF project. It does multi-cluster. It's real time. So if something updates, it'll update within under a second on the screen, and you can use it read-only, optionally. It's vendor agnostic, and you can deploy it in a cluster, or you can use it on a desktop as an app. Yeah, so it's available on lots of different platforms and through different package managers. So you can just install it how you like. So now this is one interesting thing. Headlamp's extensible, so you can make some basic changes from just simply changing the logo or the name up the top there. You can also make extensive changes. Here is a delivery platform made with Headlamp by a company called EPAM. You can see that they've changed the logo and colors, of course, but also they have extensive custom UI to do exactly what they want. So they've made lots of different changes here, and they've kind of made it specialized to do everything, like everything that they want, but nothing else. So that's the vision for Headlamp, a Kubernetes UI for making your own platform with UIs for CNCF projects. So yeah, there's hundreds of CNCF projects. There's plenty of UIs to make. Now I'll show you some of the plugins made so far. So let people view and manage their GitOps situation with Flux. And one of the benefits over having a custom UI for Flux is that you can also link into other Kubernetes resources. So you can see a namespace and click on it. You can go maybe see a pod or some events that are happening and go inspect it. So you can see deployment vulnerabilities and Kubernetes configuration warnings. This is via the CNCF project Kubescape. With eBPF gadgets, you can sort of see into the guts of Linux. You can go in there and dig around. Basically anything inside Linux, you can poke around and see. This sort of gets you information that Kubernetes doesn't usually get you. So there's this another CNCF project called Inspector Gadget, and this has dozens of different gadgets to do things like look at socket connections, to look at TCP round trip times. And yeah, so this plugin works with all the different UI gadgets that they have. You can use Docker Compose with Kubernetes with this Compose project as a UI. It also comes with a Helm UI for installing applications. So this is only used in the app, but not in the web thing, so you can decide to use it or not. You can manage certificates with the cert manager, and create and show policies, see which ones are passing. And if you're using Prometheus, there's a UI for that. Thank you.
That was excellent. Good work.
5 minutes to the second.
Good
Amazing.
practicing, Renee. All right, thank you. Inspector Gadget. We're going to cover Inspector Gadget as part of this chapter in our miscellaneous episode at the very end.
Yeah.
But so I don't see any questions so far, so don't be shy with your questions, y'all. Please ask them. And finally, are you ready for, oh wait, Lee, you're not sharing your screen anymore. There it is. All right.
Okay.
That was
Go.
my fault. Is that an automatic deduction of like 10 seconds?
You're talking right now, is.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
just keep wasting the time, man. Keep stalling. Okay. You know, I just want Victor to be happy. I know how much pleasure it is to just so outside of so Meshery. Yeah. Oh, it's coming up on about 4.5 years old now. I think it's been in the CNCF a while. It's up for incubation in terms of its maturity level. It's a piece of management software. So it manages multiple Kubernetes clusters. And in a similar way to what we were seeing with the other two projects, you can use your mouse to visually kind of navigate through things that are inside your cluster and inspect them. Get some additional information about them, sort through them, filter them. That's quite nice. So you can connect to multiple clusters and have that represented in a common, under a common pane here. It is so Meshery is an extensible platform. It comes with, well, optionally, a number of different extensions, some of which are enabled in its playground. And so that's what I'm using right now, is just a hosted Meshery playground. And we've turned on some extensions. I have signed into Meshery, and it delivers, well, something of a multi-user experience. So a little bit of collaboration is built into how it is that Meshery helps people collaborate, work together, whether you're designing your infrastructure or you're operating your infrastructure. Meshery's sort of operates on both sides of that coin. So there are, 5 minutes, right? Okay, all right. So there's a challenge. Meshery does a lot. It has a big roadmap. It has delivered on a few things early on around sort of lifecycle management of some infrastructure to be able to provision some of your infrastructure. Some around performance management, the ability to generate load and run performance tests against your infrastructure. A little bit earlier, I was playing around with one of the performance profiles and created one for you choose. And so just figure out, I'll run a test. It'll generate some load, come back with a statistical analysis about how well your infrastructure is performing. So there's a bit of, Meshery is a bit of a mix of a number of things, a bit of a mix of some observability, but also the ability to reach out and kind of touch your infrastructure and poke it. Meshery has the ability to import your Helm charts and your Kubernetes manifests, your Docker Compose files. It will transcribe those manifests, those Compose files, those charts into a Meshery design so that Meshery can, well, be a gathering place, be a point of management, irrespective of your underlying representation. You might, I'll say a little bit more about some other formats that Meshery supports, in the 10 minutes that I have. We will, let's see here. So Meshery is extensible. It can have a number of adapters. There's some custom built adapters to manage specific pieces of infrastructure very well. Anymore, Meshery really manages the landscape of the CNCF. So all the projects in the CNCF, all the projects actually that represent themselves through custom resources. So Meshery has the ability to be deployed into your live running Kubernetes environment, discover that environment, come back and let you know about all the registered components or resources that you're running. But it also has the ability to statically configure the resources that you do want to run, to configure a particular design and to deploy that design. So there's a lot of YAML underneath the covers, but you can visually poke at and visually deploy your designs, your manifests, your Helm charts. Probably easier to show a bit of this through one of the extensions. Right now, there's an extension called Mesh Map. So it's both a visual designer. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. 5 minutes goes like that.
There we go.
We're bringing everyone back on. Good job, everyone. You did it. And we're going to, are you with us, Mark? I think maybe. Aha, hello, Mark. We're gonna, this portion of the show, thank you everyone for presenting. Everyone's is great. This portion of the show is about questions. And I'm gonna start with the question that we kind of touched on at the beginning. So Victor, as anyone who's a fan of Victor's YouTube channel knows, Victor's a big fan of GitOps. So how would each of your tools work in relation to GitOps? Should your infrastructure be able to be manipulated directly through a UI? And if not, how does that work with your tool? For now, let's start with Mark.
I mean, I use Dashboard with plenty of GitOps infrastructures. You know, the beautiful thing about GitOps is that it's all based off of Git. The horrible thing about GitOps is it's all based off of Git, and there's this long pipeline that often you have to go through. So sometimes being able to say, you know what, I'm just going to test something, or I'm going to, you know, in a lower environment before going through the whole GitOps infrastructure, yeah, I need to make a change to something that can take 10 seconds in a dashboard before I put it into Git, or, you know, put the change into Git and then watch an entire pipeline roll out. I mean, that's one end of why I think a dashboard is valuable. But then the other end, I'm a big Argo CD fan, and that's got a lot of dashboard-like capabilities in it, right? You can see logs and whatnot. But it doesn't show you necessarily what resources are being used, what, you know, what's broken in other parts of the cluster that might be impacting a synchronization. So, you know, I definitely think that there's room for GitOps and QuickOps, as some folks like to refer to it. And dashboards are an important part there.
Cool. How does Headlamp relate to GitOps, please, Renee?
Yeah, so Headlamp can be configured to be read-only if you prefer. And there's also like a Flux plugin, so people who use Flux can use that. One other thing is you can make it so that some users can have only certain permissions. So what some people do, I know of, they let people like restart a pod, or maybe like drain a node or something like that through the UI. Like they make specific actions available to their teams. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Lee, how does Meshery handle GitOps?
Yeah, we like to think that you can have your GitOps and eat it too, or you can have both. Rather, you can do the actions like Renee was saying about doing something real time, urgently, maybe in production, to go in, troubleshoot, poke through the environment, like open up an in-browser terminal, take logs in your browser, search through them, and comprehend what the heck is going on in real time and collaboratively, to the extent that multiple mice are flying around the screen. At the same time, to the extent that you want to make a configuration change, you've got the option of either ad hoc, like pushing that change, or through its extensions, Meshery integrates with GitHub. And so you can, instead of pushing to Kubernetes directly or to multiple clusters directly, you can choose to export and push to Git, so that then the GitOps tooling can take over from there.
Excellent. Thanks. And we have a question from the chat. How does Meshery get the metrics data for events and pods?
Prometheus. Yeah. So if it'll discover a Prometheus that's in your Kubernetes cluster, or it'll let you deploy one and configure and deploy one, and then connect it to that Prometheus server, It'll let you import, if you have an investment in Grafana dashboards, it'll let you import those dashboard definitions and show those charts. So.
Excellent. And while we're on the topic, Renee, how do metrics play in? I remember you talking about Prometheus some in your presentation.
Yeah, there's a plugin for Prometheus, so you can see some basic things. There's also like the metrics server, which it supports.
Excellent. And then Mark, how does observability or metrics in particular, how does Kubernetes Dashboard represent those, if at all?
You'll scrape it from the metrics server if you have it deployed.
Metrics server. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I have just a silly question. Can you, I guess this is for Mark, but really anyone, what are some use cases where you need to access your cluster UI from your phone? That's not something I considered that anyone might need before.
You know, if you're in operations and you're on call and you don't want to be sitting at your desk all day, you know, that gives you access. You know, it really depends on the, you know, some people might say that that's a horrible idea. And, you know, depending on your situation, I've found it to being very, very liberating, where I am not tied to my desk. I feel that I have the ability to get up and move around, and you know, if something happens, I'm not bound to say yes, I am sitting at my desk. I can act on it.
Yeah, you can see if it's serious enough to walk over to your desk. I appreciate that. Yeah. So one thing that I'm curious about is the multi-user experience for each of these tools. Like, are you able to communicate with other users through the dashboard, and would you want to do that? Let's start with Lee on this. Well, no, it's Renee's turn to start.
Okay, so yeah, you would share a URL if you wanted to do that. So you looking at a pod, you would copy your URL to the other person, or you'd use something like Teams or Zoom or whatever you're using to chat. Okay.
I do think a big value of these tools, because it helps you visualize, it can help you communicate better about what's happening. Maybe you have a shared understanding that you could communicate around. Lee, how does Meshery address collaboration?
Yeah, well, to your point, it helps you stop finger pointing, maybe to the, you know, in terms of like the blame game. Between
I was thinking of it like teamwork, and you're like, you can figure out whose fault it is.
Or be on the same page and not. But it does, so it's a lot like Google Docs.
Can you put labels on the resources through Meshery?
Yeah, and annotations.
Okay, Kubernetes IO/fault.
Blame.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Blame, exactly.
It'll even, when you do, it'll automatically like circle, it'll like,
Everybody gets an alert. Victor messed up.
It's a lot like if you're in Google Slides as of late, you can see multiple mice kind of flying around on a Google slide. And yeah, when it's kind of hard not to say it with a pun, I suppose, but when you're on the same page, you're sort of on the same page, or like, you know what I mean? Like if you're looking at the same thing and your mouse is on the same thing, not that the mice or the ClickOps is the only way. And what I'm going to butter up Victor. Actually, it's just because I agree with him. Like, I think he was the one that said it. Maybe someone else did, but there's like, the command line or like YAML and just YAML is the way for many, and mouse is the way for others, and the combination of the two is the way for some. And like sometimes it's just a lot easier to grok what the heck is going on when it's presented in a visual way. Other times you're trying to be quite procedural or surgical. You know, for Meshery, it's all YAML under the covers, and so if you want the YAML, it's right there and it's readily available.
Right on. And how about for you, Mark? How does Kubernetes address collaboration?
So the dashboard itself doesn't have any special collaboration tools. I think the thing that I love about the way Kubernetes Dashboard works when it comes from a collaborative standpoint is because it interacts with the cluster on your behalf, when it comes down to, let's be real, blaming, we know who did what, right? Like there's no, question as to who made that change or who did that thing or when did that thing happen, because it happened as you. So as long as you're, logging in, you're not using shared credentials or, whatnot. It's no different than kube control. And then the other thing that I like is everything, like you can copy and paste the URLs and everything, so that you can share that way. So that's where the collaboration side comes.
One question I had that maybe you answered in terms of Kubernetes Dashboard, but I'm going to ask this to everyone is, do different users have different views based on what they can access and what actions they can do? So Mark, will you answer that question for Kubernetes Dashboard?
Yeah, no. Kubernetes Dashboard is not smart enough to say, oh, you only have access to these 4 namespaces. You only see those 4 namespaces. So like I'm logged in right now as a cluster admin, so I see it. But I've got users and customers in multi-tenant clusters that'll use it. And it would be nice if it said, no, you don't have, RBAC doesn't give you access to this, so we're not going to show it to you. And there's actually, I think, a PR that's been done to make that a little bit easier. But that would be a big, nice ask to be able to add to make it just a little slicker. But again, it honors your permissions. So there's no security in the dashboard to configure. So to give me read-only access, you give me read-only access in the cluster. Like you don't go into the dashboard and say, okay, now configure read-only access for this user, because now you're kind of taking over Kubernetes' own permission model. So that is, I think, a big plus side to it.
Right on. And Renee, will you speak to what different users see, whether they have different views?
So in Headlamp, it checks the Kubernetes permissions for things. So if you can't edit a pod, it won't show the edit button. If you can't delete it, it won't show the delete button, etc. The same with namespaces. So if somebody's in like one team, they'll see the namespaces for their team. So it kind of adapts to the Kubernetes permissions.
Cool. And how about Lee? What do different users see?
Yeah, in this case, Meshery sort of rides above the underlying platform's permissions. In this case, Kubernetes. So it provides you with users, teams, and organizations, and lets you assign permissions to. It lets you create your own roles, custom roles. So there's some of what I'm speaking to is provided through Meshery's extensions. Meshery core ships with every button in the UI and every page, and maybe more than just the buttons, having a unique UUID, a unique identifier, so that you can in a very granular way specify, create keychains that take those UUIDs or take those permission keys and allow you to very sort of granularly create your own permission structure and then assign those to individual users or to teams. And so, so the focus for Meshery has been in the tool itself, less on what's enforced by the user that you get inside of Meshery isn't necessarily directly representative of the same user or a user in Kubernetes.
Okay. So I was wondering that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another thing I was wondering about is like the scope of each tool. I know two out of 3 of you said multi-cluster. And if so, what's the scope of your tool? And like in the case of multi-cluster, can you see how the 2 clusters are interacting with each other? Or if you say multi-cluster, sometimes people just mean you can jump from one to the other. So let's start with you, Renee, please. What's the scope of Headlamp, please?
Yeah, so currently, you can see one cluster at a time. So you choose a cluster that you want to see, and then you can look at that. We have maybe it's been in development for about a year. The ability to select multiple clusters and view them that way. But that's probably something coming in a couple of months, I guess, at this point.
Oh, exciting. Cool. Lee, will you speak to the scope of Meshery, please?
Yeah, multi-cluster, multi-cloud. And so right now, Meshery supports services in GCP and in AWS via those clouds Kubernetes operators, the clouds Kubernetes controllers that they publish. And so multi-cluster, I don't know if I did it in the demo where I clicked on the Kubernetes dropdown in the upper right-hand corner, that you can kind of pick and choose how many clusters you want to be in your view at any given time. And so
I guess I'm confused. When you say multi-cloud, I didn't think the Kubernetes, any of these dashboards cared what kind of infrastructure was running underneath Kubernetes itself. So when you say multi-cloud, that confuses me.
Oh, sure.
How that comes in.
Yeah. So Meshery is a Kubernetes-centric, Kubernetes-aware tool, but it's not Kubernetes required. So the performance test that I showed real fast doesn't require Kubernetes to be in the picture. I mean, it can generate load and do a statistical analysis.
I see.
Without Kubernetes being around. If Kubernetes is around, it'll do a whole heck of a lot more. And a lot of what the project has been focused on, and a lot of its roadmap is certainly Kubernetes centric. So each of the, and actually Victor may know more here. But each of the AWS, Azure, and GCP, they've created controllers, Kubernetes controllers, and sort of custom resource definitions for any number of their popular services, any number of those clouds' popular services. And so they're able to represent non-Kubernetes services like EC2 or something in a Kubernetes-centric way, in a Kubernetes native way. And Meshery digests that, eats that up, and helps you then create designs and deploy those designs using the multi-cloud in that sense.
Cool. And then Mark, will you speak to multi-cluster functionality in Kubernetes Dashboard?
Yeah, it doesn't exist. So
easy peasy.
One dashboard, one cluster. The Kubernetes Dashboard is a mirror of kube control. So whatever you can do with kube control, pretty much you can do with the Kubernetes Dashboard.
Okay, that's an easy way to think about it. So I have one more question for y'all. Victor, do you have any questions? I'm dominating. Oh, you're muted, Victor.
There we go. I'm questionless.
You understand everything perfectly. One more question, and then I'm going to give each of you a chance to make your closing statement, your plea to vote, and then we'll close this up. So right now, my last question, I'm going to start with Mark on this one, is who is your ideal user? If someone's having what problems should they use Kubernetes Dashboard?
Kubernetes Dashboard is great. You're just getting started. You want to poke around, right? Like, I've never done this thing. What's the first thing you do? You launch a GUI to look at it.
Yeah.
Season support. I've got customers that will use the dashboard for support users that don't know kube control and need to get in and look at a log or delete a pod or whatever. Have built that into their support process. And then developers, hey, I've synced this change in from GitOps. What's it doing to my cluster? Is it working? Is there a problem? So anybody who would want to use kube control, plus people who might not use kube control but still need to interact with your Kubernetes cluster.
Right on. Renee, the same question for you, please. Who's your ideal user?
So people who want to set up their own platform for different teams. So maybe there's an internal team at some enterprise and they want to set up things which are very custom. So they might use Flux, for example. They might use Prometheus. They might use all sorts of different things, but they want to make it so that it's all integrated for how they want to do things. So yeah, and another user would be somebody wanting to create a UI for their project. So again, maybe you're Flux and maybe you want a UI for Flux. So rather than creating a whole other project and having to deal with signing binaries and all of this sort of stuff, all that stuff's done, and you can just concentrate on the small UI part, which simplifies it quite a lot.
Excellent.
I have a vibe with Headlamp as if it's, in a way, Kubernetes-centric backstage, similar, right? Through the extensions.
Yeah, there's it's quite similar in that way. Interestingly, there's also an extension plugin for Headlamp for Backstage. So that's in development at the moment. So that provides like a Kubernetes UI for Backstage.
Fascinating. All right, Lee, who's the ideal user for Meshery?
Yeah, well, in a similar way as to what Renee had said, Meshery is an extensible platform. We find that folks end up using it as an internal developer platform to the extent that they want to customize. Another way of speaking to this is Meshery is for teams that want to collaborate or teams that want to be on the same page, teams that have difficult to comprehend infrastructure.
Teams that need to find someone to blame.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, we're going to give each of you time to say why vote for your project. So Renee, why should folks vote for Headlamp to see a demo of Headlamp?
Okay, so one good thing about Headlamp is that we have some UIs for other CNCF projects. And I think it could be nice to have a different UI for each of the CNCF projects that people choose.
Excellent. So if you're a maintainer watching this project and you want to help make a UI, a Headlamp UI for your project, hint, hint. Excellent. So vote for Headlamp. Goodbye, Renee. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you. Bye.
Mark, why should folks vote for Kubernetes Dashboard?
It is going to be your closest experience to kube control in a browser. Really easy to deploy, really simple to deploy, easy to secure, and yeah, gives you just a lot of power at your fingertips.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Vote for Kubernetes Dashboard. Bye. All right, Lee, why should folks vote for Meshery?
Oh, because you can wrangle every CNCF project with Meshery. You can configure and deploy them. It's a pretty good reason. It's hard to be concise, but that's one.
All right. Thank you, Lee. Vote for Meshery. Goodbye. And then there were two. We did it. You're muted, Victor.
I'm muted again. Yes, we did it. I mean, you did it. I was physically present.
It was it's great. Here's the thing. We are voting on the CNCF Slack. So if you are not on the CNCF Slack, use that QR code and then you'll be on an invite page. You put your email in, you get an invite, and you can join CNCF Slack. Once you're in CNCF Slack, go to #u-choose. And then there's going to... The polls, it's posted right at the top of the hour. So it's 6 minutes away. I can hop over to Slack.
All into automation and all that jazz.
Yeah, man, I have an engineering mindset. Why would I... You're pressing a button. I'll get it there now. It's important to get there now. So I'm opening up Slack, and I will see if I can do that. But I'll say goodbye. I won't make you watch me. So please join us next week. Next week, we're going to talk about open standards. So standardization so we joke that this is an open telemetry season of You Choose instead of an observability season of You Choose. But there
is a strong chance that this will be the only episode in this season where nobody mentioned Hotel even once.
Until now, we ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't count. We talk gibberish anyways. From now on, you will hear Hotel.
Yeah. And there are two big parts of open telemetry, and one is the standardizations that it introduces. So we're going to have an episode and talk through what that is and what that means, how it evolved. Maybe if I can find a guest, we'll talk about the Prometheus standards and how they relate, because Prometheus has some too. And that's that. Yeah? I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. I will get that poll live right now, and it's going to be up for 3 days.
By the way, everybody who is still watching should thank Whitney that you're watching this this stream, because without Whitney, nobody would press a button to go live.
Victor pressed the song, the 5-minute countdown song, without pressing go live. But we got it. We're here. We're live. I'm so happy to be back, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye.